guys, welcome back. This is episode 5, part 2 of my Find Your Happy episode or episodes. Part 1, we talked about Find Your Happy, what happy means to me. To recap on that, HPPE, that's an acronym that I go by or use to go through my regular day-to-day. So H is for happy, P is for passion, P is for purpose, E is for empathy. So part 1, I talked about my background story, what each of those letters in the acronym mean to me. I also talked about my career as an engineer, why I chose engineering, how did I become an engineer, what it was like for me as an engineer, and then my eventual fall as a human. So part 2, we're going to focus on the next, half of that story, or this story that I want to share with you on my life. So I'm going to cover, my cry for help. When did I actually reach out, or how did I actually reach out for help? How did I heal myself, and with the help of those people in my life that are most important, my reawakening and my new chapter that in my life that I'm in. Because as I noted on the previous podcast, we all have our own story, and we all have chapters in our story, our book of life, if you will. So it's important that you are always mindful of that. On one of these episodes, I'll share this quote, or this very important message that my wife, relayed to me and shared with me, and we actually have this up on our wall to remind me daily to always, look at that and start every day with those, thoughts and things in my mind. So reminding of my purpose. That's what that relates to. So I'll get to that on a future episode. But let's get back to where I was sharing my story. So I ended on part 1 with my fall as a human. I'm not perfect. I'm not afraid to admit that. Neither should you. So I think I ended with reminding you to not be afraid to be human, to be 100% truly, authentically you every day. And it doesn't matter if you are with family, it doesn't matter if you're with friends, or if you're a coach and trainer and you're listening and watching this as well. The same with your clients and students. Be 100% authentically you. Don't hide behind this facade and thing of everything is perfect, because it's not. And that's the reality. No one lives a perfect life, and if they do, they're in a dream world. And this is the reality that we live in. So so when I hit that point where I fell hard, I had that mental breakdown. I was going through some depression, anxiety, and I somehow triggered my depression, anxiety, and it was showing up in various ways, through insomnia, where I wasn't sleeping at all sometimes, and through elevated stress. Like I could never find a way, even if I went out and did one of the things that I love to do the most, which is exercise. It was only temporary. I could never, get my stress level to come down to a point where I could function normally and be truly, truly, truly happy, deep happiness. And so when I hit that point, when I broke down, I reached out for help with my wife. I hit a point where, and I told you I want to be 100% authentically me and share my story. I had suicidal thoughts at one point in my life, because of that mental breakdown, because of the depression, because of the anxiety. I was afraid to be judged. I was afraid to show weakness. I was afraid to be human, and being a man, that's like the worst thing you could think of is showing weakness, right? And that's actually the opposite. In reality, if you are a man and you cannot show a sign of weakness and you cannot accept that you have weaknesses, that's not a measure of true strength. So there's strength measurements in how much you lift, how much weight you can pull, squat, deadlift, whatever. Yeah, you're a beast. Okay, great, I get it. But at home, is everything really okay? At with yourself internally, is everything really okay? In here, is everything really okay? True strength, in my opinion, and I'm 43 now. It took me the longest time to come to this point where I 100% fully accepted myself. Fully accepted that I have weaknesses. I have depression. I have anxiety. I have insomnia. Part of my anxiety is being a people pleaser. I need to, I find that I'm always caught in that like yes man scenario, and I work daily to not be that type of individual because, it weighs on you. You can get this like, point where the weight, on these shoulders, it becomes too much. And I clearly remember, I'll share a quick story with you. My sister, when she got married, and after our dad passed away, this is a different chapter in my life where I think ultimately this is what led to my depression or started my depression, is when our father passed away due to cancer. I won't get into detail about his story on this episode, but I will share that in the future. But it got to a point where I felt this huge responsibility on my shoulders when my dad passed, to look over my sister, to make sure she was okay. When our dad passed, I think I was I'm trying to remember now. I think I was a senior in college. Just about to graduate. Second to last semester, we find out he has cancer. Beginning of second semester of that senior year, he passed away. So, over 3-month period, he fought for his life. I was there with him almost every day, and it weighed on me, and that took a toll on me mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, everything. And like I said, when my dad passed, I felt this extreme weight on my shoulders to be responsible for my sister's, welfare going forward. And I even promised my dad, that I would look over her. And when she got married, finally, my brother-in-law, Mike Avino, he helped her in a way that I could never imagine. Like he helped her find happiness again. He helped her find herself, and through art, through, this medium of art and creation of, her businesses through art, which is amazing. So thank you, Mike, to my brother-in-law for giving her that. And she's taken her love for art and her love for her passion for marketing, everything related to business, and just created these things. And she inspires me daily to create my own businesses and be an entrepreneur, and thrive in it. So, so going through those things were life-changing for me. So I felt this extreme weight on my shoulder. So going back to my story, I felt like I had so much weight at the end of the day on my shoulders, and I'd go to bed at night, I would just feel completely stressed out. I could never relax, and it got to a point where there's some days I would just get angry with myself, or I'd have a small outburst of anger towards my wife, towards my daughter. And I'm not naturally an angry person. I'm not an aggressive individual at all by any means. I'm probably one of the biggest panda bears you'll ever meet. And I have so much heart and so much love and so much respect for everyone. For me to have those sides of me come out where they're not natural, I'm not naturally inclined to be that way, was a sign that something was not right with me. And that's when I figured, mentally I wasn't healthy. Mentally I was broken down. And I told you earlier, I had some suicidal thoughts. I literally wanted to give up on my life and my chapter at that point. And that's where I was, mentally. And that's not a fun place to be. It's a super dark place to be. And at the time, I didn't have God in my life. I didn't have anyone to kind of talk to and pray to and share. Even my friends from, high school, college, even as kids, all those friends I had, growing up, they were not in my life at the time. And even colleagues that I worked with, and became friends with, they were not on that level where I could just share something like that with. So it was a tough time for me. and it was even harder for me to share with my wife and my daughter. So going back to me being, afraid to show my weaknesses, to show my humanness. Is that even a word? But me being a human. And so I asked my wife for help, and the only way she knew how, because of those suicidal thoughts I was having, and I'll even share this. I was on some medication at the time, and maybe that's what was causing me to have these thoughts. And it was really tough. It's even tough for me to share that right now with you. But the only way she knew to intervene, and I had a therapist at the time, I had a psychiatrist at the time, and they didn't even know what to do. It got to that point, and it was really bad, and so I ended up checking into a mental hospital. So there it is. I got into that situation. I put myself in that situation, but also my depression, my anxiety, my insomnia, my stress, my inability to cope, everything, like I said, weighed me down. And I felt like the world came down on me, and I fell hard, and I had no way to stand back up. I could not push this weight up off me. And that's my truth, and I was in that mental hospital, I can't remember how many days, I think maybe a week. And it was one of the most scariest things I've ever done or had to go through, probably, because it put me in a place where I had to completely disconnect with my life, my wife, my daughter, what I thought was my happiness, which was my career as an engineer, and my normal, which was exercising every day, right? And being in there, I met some people that put life into perspective for me. Yes, they had some mental health issues, but it didn't matter. They were a human just like me, and those conversations I had, the interactions I had, the experiences I had, put life into complete perspective in a way I kind of, stepped out of my head, and just kind of looked at it from a bird's eye view. And looking down, yes, I realized I had imperfections. I was perfectly imperfect, as they say. But at the end of the day, looking down, I either had a choice. I could tell myself, go to the right and right yourself, fix your issues, or go to the left and stay there and keep sinking and keep sinking and keep sinking. And stressing out your family, stressing out your wife, stressing out your daughter. You know, it wasn't my intention to do any of that, you know, never to hurt them in that way, to see them see me hurt, to see them see me severely depressed, severely anxious, afraid to go outside, you know, afraid to live. And that was a scary, scary, scary place. And I remember my wife sending me a video of my daughter singing me a song. I think it was "I'm Yours" on the uke. She played, you know, "I'm Yours," and that's a big. That was one of my favorite songs, and for her to show the love and compassion and simplicity in her good heartedness and unconditional love towards me, ooh, that hit me. Like when I finally was able to be released from that hospital, like I felt a sudden surge, like a reset, if you will, and allowing myself to accept where I was in my life, in that chapter in my life, and not be afraid to, you know, accept myself, you know, and accept the love that I was getting, accept the care that I was getting from my wife, and love and from my wife and daughter, just being, you know what I mean? Um, so going through that process, when I cried for help, I was in a really, really bad spot, you know, and looking back, I probably would not have been here if she had not intervened, my wife. And some heavy shit, you know. It's really, really hard, excuse my language, but it's really, really hard for me to have been able to open up to you guys, my audience, you know, my tribe, my people that you know, are sharing your time and lending me your ears right now. This is really, really, you know, heavy, but I'm glad that I'm able to be authentic with you and share this with you, because if I, like I said in the last episode, if I can enact change or impact someone's life, in you know, one person's life every day, I've done my job. And you know, the lesson from this is that you, despite the darkness, despite the dark places you may find yourself in, you know, some days or every day or one day, there's always going to be light at the end of that tunnel. There's always going to be light on the other side of that wall, the other side of that door. You know, so I'm exhaling like that because I feel I've like kind of released something that's been weighing on me, you know. And only the select few people in my life, the most important people, know that story part of me. And I'm not afraid to be me anymore. I'm not afraid to open up, and not afraid to, you know, share that part of my life, because that's the reality. That's, you know, part of what makes me who I am today is that chapter in my life. So I can't hide that. I can't you know, shun myself or shy away from it. So at some point, you know, I'll open up even more about that part of my, you know, that chapter in a future, you know, post or a future video, like I talked to you about the last episode with my good friend Derek Diaz. We're gonna create a video series to kind of, you know, shed light on that darkness. So, you know, moving on, what did I do to heal? Excuse me. So what did I do to heal? You know, my healing involved completely disconnecting, you know, getting off social media, getting away from my phone, getting away from feelings that I needed to be there for others, when in fact, at the end of the day, they could have cared less about me. You know, and that comes back to my high functioning anxiety. I feel like I need to people please, and if I let you down or anyone down, I go into this dark, you know, dark place of despair and like sadness, if you will, and I get really depressed, and that's just my nature, and I feel like, and my wife has been, the rock behind this whole process, and she got me the help I needed, you know, through better care, through therapy, things like that. Because at the end of the day, being someone that's depressed, or being someone that's depressed or has anxiety or any mental health issue, you cannot expect your better half, your loved one, your wife, your husband, your significant other, to have to shoulder what you are dealing with here or in here. And that's why it's so important to find the right help. And so eventually I found the right help, and I somehow, reawakened myself. I kind of touched on that in the last episode, but just reawakening involved me redefining who Joe Bala is, what is it I do, what is my passion, or what are my, passions, purpose, what is my purpose, and what makes me happy inside. And I shared with you earlier on the iPad screen here on the last episode, if you Googled, let me bring this up now while I'm talking. If you Google happy and you go to images, what do you see? Just a bunch of smiles and, happy faces, things that kind of, elevate your mood. And for someone that's depressed, or has depression, it's not as simple as you assume or you think. There's no, when you're depressed, when you have depression, or you're feeling depressed, it's not so much happy, sad. It's not that simple, and everyone's unique, everyone's different. And I'm sure if you know someone that has depression, anxiety, it comes in various levels. So opening up about my depression, it's not just sadness that I feel. It's like a lack of energy, a lack of interest, apathy. I get completely apathetic. I could care less about you. I could care less about myself even. And, there's a point where when it's really bad, I'll go in this dark place where I just don't want to get out of bed. I'll lay there, completely throw my routine, my self-care routine out the door. Like, I'll stop exercising. I will stop reading or learning. I'll stop texting. I'll stop being on social media. If you notice anything like that with, your loved ones who you suspect may have depression, those are the signs. And I hope that, you listening in and watching this podcast, through my experience and through me sharing it with you, you'll become that much more educated. But if you on the other side of that camera, or you on the other side of that, device that you're listening to my voice through, if you feel any of that, that's probably depression that you're feeling. And yes, it's a scary place. It can be a scary place, but it's so possible, so feasible to find healing and find ways to cope with it. Because like any illness, let's say, let's say you have a family member that has cancer. My wife is an oncology nurse. She shares with me all these stories of patients that she cares for that are dealing with the hardest cases, stage 3, stage 4 cancer. Your life, it's terminal. You're going to, be taken from this world, and it's scary. you know. And so, like a cancer, depression affects your brain, you know, and it can be in depression, anxiety can be triggered through, you know, chemical imbalances, or it can be triggered through life experiences. Um, it can be triggered through your environment with those life experiences. So, extreme amount of stress, which I dealt with, you know, through my previous career. There's a ton of stuff out there that can trigger it, right? So, just being aware of you know, potentially you having depression, or someone in your family that you care for, or someone in your circle that you care for, look out for them. You know, they may not want your help right away. And I'll tell you right off the bat, I did not want help from my wife. I did not want help from my daughter, my sister, my cousin, my other cousin, my, you know, good friends. When I'm depressed, I just want to disconnect. And like I said, being completely apathetic are signs of having depression. So healing involves, you know, coming to a point internally where you decide you want to get help. And yes, there are types of depression, clinical depression, that are like super severe, where you cannot do anything to help yourself. You will not accept help from anyone. And it comes to a point where you're going to be severely medicated or be in a hospital the rest of your life. Fortunately, I am not in that severe spectrum of depression, but I have it, you know, and I accept it. It's part of me. It's who I am. And without it, I wouldn't have the perspectives that I do in life. And, you know, being a human that has depression, that has anxiety, that has sleep issues, it's okay at the end of the day, because I'm getting the help that I need. And, you know, so reawakening myself involved getting the right care, but also putting myself, and this is going back to that first, you know, mental breakdown. This was back in 2016, 2015, 2016, where I lost myself somehow. And when I made the career switch, this was towards the end of latter half of 2016, I had a choice. I could continue going back to working as an engineer and potentially increasing my stress even more, or just completely disconnecting and like leaving all that behind. I chose the latter, you know, and that was what was best for me. That's what was best with my wife, and my wife's advice. That's what was best for my daughter's future, for her health. And, you know, it's not, you know, having depression, having anxiety is not a one-way street. It affects your wife, your husband, your significant other. It also affects your children. It affects your family members, your friends, you know, your circle of friends. Just the ecosystem of what makes you you are affected. You know, when people, like I told you, when I hit those points where I'm super depressed, I just completely disconnect and I kind of disappear. I turn into literally a ninja. You can't find me. And unless you physically come and, you know, come find me and know where I'm at. But that's what happens. I go into that ninja mode. And, you know, fortunately, I was able to find my my new chapter, and redefining myself by switching careers. And that's what leads me up to this episode. The point of this episode is, or part 2 of this episode is, to truly find your happy, you may need to do a career switch. You know, do something that you are completely going to be happy about and fulfilled by, and find true happiness through. And so, me being a coach, a trainer, a small business owner, I've found through this medium my true 100% authentic self, my 100% happy, my interactions with my clients, my students, my circle of friends that are in the fitness industry, being able to share something I'm passionate about, which I've always been, about movement, about training, exercise. I found it, and I am in a really completely different space in my life. Left side, that was depression, despair, like giving up. Right side, I'm all the way over here. I'm like 180, switch, and I don't want to do this where I end up going back there to my left. Well, so I'm doing everything I can, my utmost every day to practice better self-care, observing colors, wearing pink shorts, getting away from dark colors, things that could potentially put me in a dark place. So appreciating, the greens, the blues, the pinks, the oranges, the purples, so I had to sip some coffee right there because that's some good coffee. That's me being silly, guys. So, reawakening involved me switching my career and ultimately adding to that better self-care, better routines such as meditation, such as yoga, journaling, which I've learned about through my friend Melanie, breath work through my friend and fellow coach Zach Elliott. Thank you, brother, for that. And Melanie, she does amazing breath work as well. Coaching, they're both really amazing, individuals. So thank you guys for what you've done for me, enlightening me in that area. So, and then the other thing is, pursuing hobbies. One of my hobbies is tinkering. So working with my hands, that's so important. So building stuff, utilizing your brain, your creativity, create things, even if it's drawing or art or singing. There was one point where I was on this path of learning or expanding my learning with my guitar. My dad, exposed me to guitar when I was younger, and I kind of lost my way with the guitar, and I picked up again kind of my young adulthood, and I learned the guitar again, or relearned the guitar, and then I even picked up the ukulele or uke. So music, art, that's a form of self-care. Another form of self-care that I practice is, doing things that are outside of my comfort zone. So one of the places that was outside my comfort zone was an obstacle course race, but even prior to that was running. I'm not a natural runner. Like, I have, the ability to be powerful, be strong, agile, quick. And as I'm getting older, it's slowing down a bit. So, but the point is, I was never built to run long distances, and so that's why I never pursued OCR or Spartan, because I was afraid of, failing, and part of that is the anxiety that I have. And so getting out there to do a full marathon with my wife, a half marathon with my wife, that kind of opened the door for me to go into OCR. Soon after I did the full marathon with my wife, and I knew I could hit 26.2 miles, and I survived it. I was like, man, I could do anything. And so that's kind of when back in 2012, when I did my first OCR, which was Warrior Dash. Warrior Dash was amazing. I got to run and play on obstacles, climb things, jump in mud and water, just be free. And that's where I feel the most happiest, when I'm on a Spartan course, when I'm doing obstacle course races. And now, back in 2018, I went and pursued a passion of mine that I was kind of putting on the back burner when I was young was Ninja Warrior. You know, I promised, and this is a podcast that I will share with you soon, but I promised my younger brother, you know, when he was little, and I shared with you in the previous podcast that he got into breakdancing a little bit because of myself, my brother-in-law Mike, and the b-boy crew that we were in, and it was natural transition for me to go from breakdancing to, because I love calisthenics as well. I love sprinting, just being agile, climbing things. I think I even remember when I was younger, I even, if any of you know what a cherry drop is, I'll kind of explain that. A cherry drop is like, you know, you're on a pull-up bar, you're sitting on top of the pull-up bar, and you just flip backwards. Your legs are hooked on the pull-up bar, and you roll back, and then you land on your feet. That was kind of the daredevil stuff I did, and then at one point I got up on top of a baseball diamond, or not a baseball diamond, the backing of the baseball field, you know, where you have the catcher, where you have the hitter and the umpire. That back in the day in the neighborhood we lived in, there was this huge, you know, fence, and you could climb up this thing and get on the top, and there was a bar that extended all the way across, and I got to the point where I was like, all right, I'm brave enough to climb up that thing. I climbed up there, and then I did a cherry drop off that thing. That was probably one of the bravest but also stupidest things I've ever done, but that's the kind of adrenaline rush I was looking for. And my friend and I at the time, we did a ton of stuff like that, and that's why Ninja Warrior is something that I love and something that I'm passionate about. I don't just do Ninja Warrior just because it's a fad. It's an actual thing that kind of feeds my soul, makes me happy inside, because it's a way for me to, you know, find and maintain and take care of my happiness. And so, you know, reawakening yourself, especially if you have someone, if you're like me, if you're someone like me that has depression, anxiety, insomnia, all these different mental health issues, making sure you practice better self-care through better self-habits, or not self-habits, but habits, and pursuing those hobbies, pursuing your passions, you know, that's what allowed me to reawaken myself. And so, you know, this new chapter that I entered at that point, and you know, this is only half of my, you know, story with my mental health. The other half I'm going to share in the future, much not far out, but at some point I'm going to get to that. But that second half of my mental health story, that happened back in early 2020, you know, right before the pandemic hit. So that in and of itself is an entire, you know, episode I need to share, you know, I want to share, and to educate others about mental health issues, about mental health struggles, about, you know, what someone goes through with depression, with anxiety, and showing you guys that I'm still human at the end of the day. I'm still Coach Joe, but yeah, I have imperfections. I'm perfectly imperfect, as they say. So what are things that I do outside of what I mentioned earlier? Exercising, you know, making sure I practice exercising by myself to put myself in the right mental space, practicing my breath work, practicing mobility, flexibility, doing things I love with fitness, you know. So I'm very much holistic in how I approach my fitness, especially my physical fitness. I don't like doing one thing. I used to only train like a bodybuilder at one point in my life, and I found that didn't really fulfill me, and so that's why I ended up running, eventually doing OCR, and then I was on this journey, and I've been on this journey of functional fitness, body weight training, going back to my b-boy days, doing calisthenics, plyometrics, learning new tools that help me grow as a coach, as a trainer, as a human, as an athlete. So what's underneath this iPad right here? This is called the Viper. So it's spelled VIPR. So these are one of those functional fitness tools that I got to learn through one of my mentors, Matt Truscott. So shout out to Matt. And then also learned about it through Dan Benton. And it's important to grow, and grow these things in terms of better self-care. So exercise, growing your knowledge base and your skill set and ability to better care for yourself is so important, especially for me. So that's physical, that's exercise. And then I got into ninja wear. That's a completely different story in and of itself. We'll get to that at some point here. But practicing meditation, my good friend Philip Levy, he told me about this awesome app called Waking Up, and so I'm actively practicing that daily now. I was doing some form of meditation on my own, using stuff that I would find on YouTube, or listening to things on different podcasts. So that's some practice I've been actively practicing daily, so which is great. I also do journaling. Thank you again to Melanie for that. My podcast, this podcast that you're watching and listening to, this is a way for me to practice better self-care, because I'm sharing, I'm interacting with you. It may be virtual, it may not be live right now, but you guys are listening to my voice, you're watching me on the other side of that screen, and I appreciate you guys for listening. Eventually I'll be starting a blog. I love writing, so I'll be sharing some tidbits here and there, things that I can teach you and help you, level up your life, hopefully in some way, form, or fashion. One of those 5 things I talked about: physical fitness, mental fitness, socially, I'll call it social fitness, even if that's not a word, I'm gonna call it that, emotional fitness, and also spiritual fitness. Those 5 things, that's what makes up who I am, and I hope that I can change your viewpoints on, or influence your viewpoints on, in terms of your own fitness journey. The last thing that I do is I have a Spartan team, OCR team, if you will. I had a bigger team at one point prior to this pandemic. I had a bigger team at one point prior to, hitting my second, mental health breakdown back in 2020. But it's growing again, and it's just a matter of time. It's a matter of getting my story out there more, you guys learning about me, and I do offer online coaching, and I do offer virtual training, live virtual training, in-person training. And so all these different things, there's a way for you to join a team like the one I have to help you address mental health challenges. So, find your happy. And I think this is where I feel like this is where I want to wrap up this episode. But finding your happy, through those 5 things I mentioned, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and social fitness. Fitness, in my view, has to be holistic, has to account for everything. And the bonuses out there are obviously eating better, sleeping better, you know, mentally, maybe sometimes physically disconnecting from the world, from social media, to better connect with your sibling, you know, better connect with your best friend or friends, better connect with your significant other. You know, my wife and daughter, they're my number ones in my life, and without them, I couldn't do what I do. You know, I couldn't be who I am for you guys. So thank you guys for lending me your ears, lending me your hearts, you know, and hopefully accepting me as I am. I am human only at the end of the day, and you know, I have so much love and respect for you guys. So thank you guys for listening. I'm gonna end it here. Look forward to sharing my next episode with you guys, and we'll catch you at the next one. Peace. Much love, guys.